My friends, it's Matt Christopher, and I thought I would make another video on the subject of the shootings and murders in Germany that affected Jehovah's Witnesses. And I have to say that I'm very grateful for the many comments that I've received on my first video in response to these this atrocious situation. I really appreciate even those who had contrary views. I appreciate that, and I've had a little bit more time, I suppose, to think about the events and also their significance towards us as former Jehovah's Witnesses looking for justice. I suppose my initial feeling really was one of sheer horror, and also that I was very concerned that the work that all of us collectively have done and continue to do would be thwarted by this act of violence. But I have to say that I'm very surprised that out of this terrible situation is that now the media is asking questions about Jehovah's Witness policies, and I guess I didn't think that was going to happen. So I am feeling a lot more positive now about our cause. I also like to say that the many other activists who have done videos talking about the events that took place in Hamburg in Germany have rightfully pointed to probably the catalyst for this violent act. I'm very thankful for the many voices that also contribute to our community. Certainly none of us have all of the answers, I would say, and in this particular case it's very complex. Another thing that was brought out, which I was not aware of, is that the perpetrator of this crime actually was going to be announced as being no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. That is something that I didn't know. So it certainly adds far more texture to what was going on, rather than, as I said in my original video, a terrorist attack. And while I absolutely condemn unequivocally violence as any means, violence to, I suppose, put our point across, and that, as far as I'm concerned, that violence should never be condoned or winked at in any way. I think, to be fair in the broader scheme of things, that the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society has absolutely driven people insane. I think one of the things that I probably missed was that people respond differently to extreme pressures. What would be something unthinkable maybe to myself or to you, unfortunately in the extreme minority may be an option, and I suppose I never thought about that. I think that most importantly is that this has actually started very strong conversations, not just amongst ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and our treatment, but also active Jehovah's Witnesses. And what I've seen is that Jehovah's Witnesses once again have tried to hide the facts. We saw that there was one news release in terms of jw.org, and then the same as Anthony Morris III, it quickly disappeared. Unfortunately, this act of terror, and I still say it's an act of terror, is something that needs to be examined and deeply examined, and also the fundamental causes of that man's actions, which I didn't address at all in my first video. Also, the thing is that we are resilient. We've been through so much as a community, and we've been shunned, and violence has actually been committed against us, and that is something that has to be addressed. And I know that for a very long time I spoke, and others spoke, about the absolute abhorrent behaviour of Anthony Morris III, who spoke in violent terms of wishing the death to those who he considers to be apostates. All of this adds up to a very disturbing fabric. is that, as one person has said, that hurt people hurt people. And that's a very fair comment. The fact is that somebody's breaking point may not be mine or yours, as I mentioned before, but it doesn't mean that it's not a breaking point. Jehovah's Witnesses, with their policy of fear and control, have produced an international crisis of people who are probably suffering from PTSD, and I put my hand up for that. I think that many of us in many ways look at the events in Germany probably from a different lens maybe to the outsiders. I noticed that someone made a comment on my YouTube channel, basically, of course, attacking us as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and that somehow, not that we were responsible, but yet we needed to somehow get over what had happened to us, and that somehow we were behaving like a cult of its own. And I answered that person by quite simply saying that the policies of Jehovah's Witnesses, and especially for us who have been born in to that faith, left no room for individual freedoms or choices. And especially when you look at subjects like the blood issue. Jehovah's Witnesses, in their millions, are willing, because of the conditioning and brainwashing, that they are willing to die, and in the past are willing to allow their children to die by not having medical treatment, including organ transplants, blood fractions and blood transfusions. Thank goodness the authorities now take the children off the parents for that very short time while they give them life-saving treatment and then give them back. So in most cases, that issue of children being put in at harm has been reduced, and we can certainly say thank you to the governments for acting. But one thing that we're seeing out of Germany, which actually has heartened me, is that journalists of good repute are actually asking very difficult questions of Watchtower, especially when it comes to their disfellowshipping and shunning policies. We see that the chief propaganda minister in Hendrik seems to be able to tell with a straight face, the media, that Jehovah's Witnesses do not shun. But we know for a fact that they do, and we are probably living proof of that. Many former Jehovah's Witnesses have lost all contact with their families and raising their own families. They, in many ways, have no family tradition to pass on to their children, because to them we truly are dead if we stay in our present form, unless you happen to be a mentally diseased apostate with no hope of repentance. The fact for me after this situation in Germany is that complex issues such as the murderous rampage of a former Jehovah's Witness raises more questions than answers, and I think I didn't address it probably in the most, I suppose, coherent of ways in my first video. That's what emotion does to you. I suppose the point is that our fight is one of human rights. We certainly wish for governments, and it's only through governments and only through the courts that we can possibly get justice for all of us who are victims of Jehovah's Witnesses. We truly are cult survivors. We need the courts to understand the coercive control of the governing body. Even aspects that are not necessarily death dealing, such as their attitude towards higher education or education at best. This has a profound effect. There's only so many formative years that one has to be able to set themselves up for their future. And if that's taken away from them by coercive control, it's very difficult to change course. I hope that these issues and others will be addressed, not because of the situation in Germany, but that people understand that Jehovah's Witnesses are not a middle-of-the-road Christian denomination. They're not Christian and they're not middle of the road. They are dangerous in their manipulation of the courts. We see that they try, even at this moment, to curry favour with the courts so that they can be in a protected position. We just hope that at least after the violent attack there in Germany, that others, probably far more qualified than I, are able to examine the driving forces to why someone would commit these crimes. And one of the telltale signs of this was in fact the shunning policy. I hope that this video gives a little bit more, I suppose, a bit more of a more rounded approach than my my original video. I'm sorry if I caused any offence to you. I'd also like to say, on a positive note, we also hit an incredible milestone, and that is that over 80,000 people have participated in this humble little program of mine. And I want to thank you, because you are the ones that have supported me. I am eternally grateful for your love and support. Thank you very much, and thank you for being my friends. And I'll speak to you very soon. I'm Matt Christopher, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.